You wake up, look at your phone, and unlock it with your face. Within seconds, you're following an invisible routine. Notifications, coffee, traffic, work, email, password, signature, deadline. Everything seems normal. But Max Weber, one of the fathers of modern sociology, would say that at this very moment, you're playing a game where the rules were written long before you were born, and you don't even know who wrote them. Weber called this rational legal domination, a type of power based on rules, norms, and systems that tell us what can and cannot be done. Unlike the king who rules by inheritance or the charismatic leader who wins hearts, the new modern power is on paper, in the rule, in the process. And that is why it seems invisible. But here's the crux. Whoever writes the rules rules the game. Obeying the rules isn't just obeying the state. It's submitting to an entire structure designed to shape your behavior. The traffic signs, the bills, the timetables, the forms, the terms of use, the contracts you accept without reading them. All of this forms an invisible web that guides, limits, and controls you. Max Weber didn't see this as a conspiracy theory. He saw it as an inescapable truth of the modern world. Society needed to organize itself, and for it to function, someone had to write the rules. But what he warns us about is that over time, the rules came to govern more than the people who created them. Bureaucracy became an autonomous force. And here comes the most disturbing part. The more obedient you are, the more accepted you are. The more you follow the rules, the more you are rewarded. Promotion, diploma, approved credit. The system smiles at those who conform. But when someone questions it, why is it like this? Who decided this? The system closes down, because questioning the rules is questioning the power behind them. Weber makes us look at reality with different eyes. The bank teller is not just an employee. He is the extension of a protocol. The judge, the doctor, the teacher, the algorithm, they all follow guidelines. And if someone controls these guidelines, they also control the actions of those who follow them. That's the point. It's not about who's in charge. It's about who decides what counts. We live in a world where we follow rules every day without ever asking ourselves who created those rules or why. And the amazing thing is that most people don't feel like they're being controlled. They think they're just getting by, but they're actually walking through a maze whose paths were laid out by someone who almost never shows up. Are you living or just following invisible instructions? Max Weber understood something that few realized at the beginning of the 20th century. Modern power does not show off. It does not shout, it does not wear a uniform, and it does not need a throne. The new power is where almost no one looks, in the pen that writes the rules. We live in a world where the president, the chief, the police officer, or the judge may seem to be in control of the situation. But Weber teaches us that real control lies in the framework that shapes their decisions. A president can rule a nation, but he is limited by the Constitution. A judge can judge, but he is bound by the penal code. A teacher can teach, but he must follow the curriculum. In all of these cases, the individual acts within a framework. And if someone wrote that framework, then that person has more power than he seems. This is where what Weber calls rational legal authority comes in. A system where rules are the basis for obedience, not the person. And the more complex a society is, the more it relies on rules, regulations, laws, processes. This sounds good on the surface. After all, the idea that no one is above the law is, in fact, a pillar of modern democracies. But there is a hidden danger. Whoever writes the law dictates what is right, and what is right becomes social truth. Today you follow rules at work, on social media, when shopping, when driving, at school. But think about it. Who decides what constitutes a violation of guidelines? Who determines what behaviors are acceptable? Who defined that a degree is worth more than talent? Or that working 8 hours a day is normal? Someone wrote that. And that person, or group, has a kind of power that is nearly impossible to track. Weber clearly saw the rise of bureaucracy as the dominant form of social organization. He was not talking about just paperwork, but about a cold, impersonal structure that creates and enforces rules based on the logic of efficiency, predictability, and hierarchy. The ideal system for bureaucracy is one where the individual does not think, he just does it. And the more he does it, the more the system grows and strengthens. This creates a curious scenario. Those who are inside the structure are just pieces. Even if they try to resist, they cannot change the board. Only those who create the rules have this power. And that is why the real owners of the modern world are not those who appear in the news, but those who write the terms, the contracts, the manuals, the algorithms. Weber wasn't being poetic, he was being surgical. He said, "The greatest power is that which hides behind normality." And when everything seems too normal, too predictable, too automatic, it's a sign that someone has succeeded in convincing you to obey. The game of modern obedience is silent, and Weber challenges you. Are you fighting the wrong players? While the real owners of the board remain invisible, Max Weber coined an expression as powerful as it is disturbing: the iron cage of rationality. This metaphor describes exactly the world we have created, and which we live in today without realizing it. A world where everything is calculated, measured, predicted, recorded, where efficiency is the greatest virtue, and the human spirit the greatest sacrifice. Rationality, which began as a liberating force, bringing science, logic and progress, has become a prison. Weber saw that, as modern societies evolved, they created increasingly rational and impersonal systems. But this rationality became a trap. It began to restrict life. And what was once a tool became a prison cell. Think about your routine: clock ticking every second, apps recording every step, platforms demanding access codes, updates, confirmations, check-ins. There is no room for improvisation, for the sacred, for the symbolic. Mystery has become dysfunctional. Time has become productivity. Life has become a task. And the scariest thing is, they call it freedom. It is this contradiction that Weber denounces. We no longer live under the rule of tyrant kings, but we live under the tyranny of the calendar, the goal, the report, the system. Bureaucracy does not rule you. It transforms you. It transforms you into a number, a position, a function, a CPF, a registry, a protocol. Human subjectivity becomes data. Love becomes relationship status. Pain becomes medical report. Everything is translated into something measurable, because if it cannot be quantified, it is not useful. It is in this structure that the cage lives. Not because someone imposed it by force, but because you accepted it as normal. You adapted. You studied for tests you didn't choose. You worked hours you didn't decide. You achieved goals that don't represent you. All of this with the promise of growth, without realizing that the price charged was your authenticity. And herein lies the modern paradox. The more obedient you are to the system, the more successful you seem. But this ascension happens inside the cage itself. You move up in rank, but you remain trapped by the same logic. You earn more, but you waste time. You receive more attention, but you live more under surveillance. And in the end, you realize that success was designed to keep you busy, not free. Weber was not against progress, he was against the blindness it can cause. When everything becomes function, process, and performance, what is left of the soul? What is left of doubt, of dream, of art? The iron cage does not prohibit freedom, it only makes it unnecessary. And that, for Weber, was the greatest risk of all. Because the perfect cage has no visible bars. It has rules, rules that seem rational, that seem logical, that seem good. But that, deep down, prevent you from remembering who you were before you became just part of a system. Max Weber said that in the modern world, control is not imposed by force. It is established by norms. The new power does not punish in public squares, does not arrest without a signed document, nor impose fear with swords. It simply excludes you, and no one wants to be excluded. This is the dark genius of bureaucracy and rational structures. They no longer need to coerce, they simply make obedience the only path to acceptance. Those who follow the rules are rewarded. Those who question the rules are labeled as rebels, as crazy, as inadequate. Look at the algorithms. There is no direct punishment for thinking differently, But if you say something out of the ordinary, your voice is silenced. Less reach, less visibility, your content disappears. Your profile doesn't engage. And it all seems like just a technical detail, but it's not. It's power disguised as neutrality. Weber saw that the greatest risk of rationalizing the world is precisely this: the creation of a system that makes it seem as if everything is neutral, objective, impersonal. A system that has no face, so no one is responsible. A system that makes it seem as if this is how it works, period. As if the rules had not been created by anyone, but simply existed. This logic is profoundly violent, but silent. It marginalizes without touching. It excludes without getting its hands dirty. Because today, the most effective punishment is oblivion. It is being left aside. It is not being promoted. It is not being heard. It is not being noticed. It creates a culture of self-censorship. People stop thinking for themselves, not because they are afraid of being punished, but because they want to continue belonging. This is how the system shapes even its language. Terms, slang, acronyms, labels, everything is regulated. In the workplace, on social media, in groups of friends. Anyone who speaks outside the script is disinvited from the table. And, little by little, we learn, it is easier to obey than to be rejected. Modern obedience is a silent pact. You don't question, and in return, you are not disturbed. You follow the rules, and in return, you are recognized. But Weber asks you, is this living? Or is it just surviving within someone else's rules? And don't think that this is limited to the government or formal institutions. This logic has permeated everything. Affective relationships with invisible rules, social groups with camouflaged norms of behavior, even movements that claim to be free, have their own unquestionable doctrines. Weber saw that the more rational and structured a society becomes, the less room there is for true rebellion. The system learns to absorb even protests, to domesticate even revolutionaries, to transform even criticism into a product. This is where the turning point lies. Control is not just about obeying rules. It is about not knowing how to live outside of them. Max Weber doesn't give you a villain. He gives you a mirror. Because the system he describes isn't just external. It already lives inside you. Every time you say, "That's just the way it is," every time you think, "There's no other way," you are reproducing the invisible structure that Weber warned so much about. Domination by rules. But what if you stopped right now and asked yourself, who is writing the rules of my life? Because while you comply, someone creates. While you run, someone measures. While you obey, someone decides what is right and what is possible. And Weber shouts from the past, "He who controls the rule, controls the world." Today, who dictates what can be said on social media? Who defines what is beautiful, acceptable, civilized? Who shapes what constitutes an exemplary citizen? It is not the generals, nor the emperors. It is those who sit on the boards of large companies, behind the scenes of the laws, in the offices of software engineers, in the hands of public policy writers. They are the invisible writers of reality. And the truth is hard. If you don't decide for yourself, it will be decided for you. This is Weber's final call. He doesn't want you to fight with a sword. He wants you to fight with consciousness. To stop simply accepting, to start questioning the structures. To realize following rules is necessary, but only to the point where they don't erase you as a human being. You can create your own, not to rebel for the sake of rebellion, but to avoid living a life where every decision has been outsourced, where every choice has been shaped to fit you, and not to free you. Modern life offers a dangerous comfort, the comfort of not thinking, but those who don't think just repeat, and those who just repeat live in someone else's script. Weber saw the future as a bifurcation. On one side, the perfect machine that eliminates the soul. On the other, the human being who wakes up and begins to write his own rules. Rules made of meaning, of ethics, of inner truth. You can live obeying, but you can also live creating. It can remain within the system, but it can also be the one that redraws the map. The world we know was created by people who one day decided they could and should write their own rules. Not to dominate others, but to escape invisible domination. Because, in the end, the most powerful rule is not the one that everyone obeys, it is the one you choose to obey, consciously. If this made sense to you, like the video, share it with someone who is still in prison, and subscribe to the channel. Because here, we don't follow the rule, we understand who wrote it.